watching the English newscast here on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, and these are today's top stories. A man in Akkad shoots his two sons dead in their sleep before turning the weapon on himself. The UN says ISIL has executed 60 people over treason in Mosul. And protests in the United States against Donald Trump's election victory turned violent as demonstrators across the country take to the streets for a second day. A man in Akkad has shot his two sons dead before turning the weapon on himself. The national news agency says Yusuf Saadu killed his boys, 7-year-old Muhammad and 5-year-old Ali, with a hunting rifle before killing himself in the town of Mashta Hassan. The Nashra news agency said the father shot the boys while they were asleep in their beds. Neither report provided a motivation for the killings, but Nashra said the father had been arrested at some point over drugs. Forensics teams and security forces are conducting investigations. Caretaker Prime Minister Tamam Slam has expressed relief over the recent political breakthrough in Lebanon, calling for the quick formation of a new cabinet. Salam seemed eager to leave the office in an interview with the Safir newspaper after 2 years of struggling to maintain the cabinet amid an exacerbated presidential void. He said he had left the Grand Sarai and assumed the caretaker tasks from his residence in Beirut Musaidbe in order to deter any impression that he was holding on to the post. Salam hailed Prime Minister-designate Saad Hariri's support for President Michel Aoun, despite what he called the tough decision he had made to salvage Lebanon. Lebanon's public drivers have called for protests to take place on Tuesday after the authorities failed to take action against the privatization of automotive inspection centers and a fee hike in services. Head Union of Public Drivers Abdul Amir Najdi says the rally will be held outside the Interior Ministry in Beirut's Sanaya area. Lebanese firm Autospect was recently awarded a contract to manage the centers in collaboration with Swiss giant SGS. Autospect said it would offer new and improved services but would require inspection fees to increase by 65%. Inspection centers across the country have been closed since drivers began sit-ins last month. People were banned from entering these centers to conduct an annual checkup for their vehicles. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon has condemned Hezbollah's military intervention in neighboring Syria, noting that it violates UN Security Council Resolution 1701. Ban reportedly called on Hezbollah and all Lebanese parties to halt any interference in the Syrian conflict. The UN Secretary General said Hezbollah's involvement breaches Lebanon's so-called dissociation policy, warning that any military activities by Hezbollah or any other Lebanese elements in the neighboring country would subject Lebanon to grave risks. Ban also said the movement of fighters and weapons across the Lebanese-Syrian border is a violation of the Resolution 1701. Lebanon's Tawhid Party has mourned 7 of its members who died in battles in neighboring Syria. A statement issued by the party said the 7 members had been killed while performing their national duty in confronting armed terrorist groups in the village of Hadir in Quneitra. Just a reminder that the Lebanese Tawhid Party is led by former Minister Wiam Wahab. The UN says ISIS fighters reportedly shot dead more than 60 people this week and hung some of their bodies from poles after alleging they had collaborated with Iraqi troops. The UN Human Rights Office has raised alarm over hundreds of grotesque atrocities allegedly committed by ISIS, as Iraqi forces have pushed their nearly month-long offensive to retake Mosul, the last extremist bastion in Iraq. Coming up next, influential singer and songwriter Leonard Cohen passes away at the age of 82. Stay tuned. Welcome back. French President François Hollande and Britain's Prince Harry have led commemorations as the two nations marked Armistice Day to remember those killed in war. At 11 a.m. local time, millions across Britain observed 2 minutes of silence, marking the time fighting ended on the Western Front of World War I on November 11th of 1918. Offices, schools and city centres fell silent, while in Trafalgar Square in central London, traffic came to a halt with crowds invited to put poppy petals in the square's famous fountains. Meanwhile, in Paris, Hollande led a wreath under the Arc de Triomphe. Addressing the crowd, the president said November 11 marks the memory of the First World War and of a rising wave of nationalism that could not be contained. We must continue to remember it. End of quote. Moving on to the United States, protests against Donald Trump's election victory have turned violent as demonstrators across the country take to the streets for a second day. Thousands of protesters reportedly threw objects at police in Portland, Oregon, and damaged a car park. Some protesters also sprayed graffiti on cars and buildings and destroyed shop windows. Portland police arrested a handful of protesters and used pepper spray and rubber bullets in an attempt to disperse the crowd. Have a look. The U.S. judge overseeing a lawsuit against President-elect Donald Trump and his Trump University told both sides they would be wise to settle the case, given all else that's involved. Lawyers for the president-elect are squaring off against students who claim they were lured by false promises to pay up to $35,000 to learn Trump's real estate investing secrets from his hand-picked instructors. Trump denies the allegations and has argued that he relied on others to manage the business. Paul Chapman reports.
Protests against Donald Trump's election as president aren't the only difficulty he's facing at the moment. A judge overseeing a lawsuit against him and Trump University by some of its students says he's disinclined to delay the case further, but urged both sides to settle. A trial's been set for November the 28th to consider allegations by students that they were lured by false promises into paying fees up to $35,000. Trump's lawyers want the trial in the 6-year-old case put on hold until 2017.
I think the last thing we need right now is to have a trial about events that occurred 6 years ago or 7 years ago, in which Mr. Trump, President-elect Trump, is a personal defendant on matters completely unrelated to the momentous obligations that he now needs to deal with.
The lawyer for the plaintiffs says further delay would be unacceptable.
Now's the time to do this trial. Our clients have been waiting, for 6.5 years. Many of them are senior citizens.
The lawsuit alleges students paid to learn Trump's real estate secrets taught by hand-picked instructors. The court papers say Trump owned 92% of Trump University at the time and had control over all major decisions.
At least 4 people were killed and 120 were wounded as a suicide car bomber struck the German consulate in the northern Afghan city of Mazar-e-Sharif. The bombing was claimed by the Taliban, which called it a revenge attack for a U.S. airstrike in the province of Kunduz earlier this month that left up to 32 civilians dead. U.S. forces admitted last week that its airstrikes very likely resulted in civilian killings in Kunduz, pledging a full investigation into the incident. Alibaba's Singles' Day sales surged past last year's $13.36 billion total, with nearly 9 hours left on the clock. Growth, however, was markedly slower than in 2015, as shoppers sought even bigger price cuts. Graham McKay reports.
$1 billion in sales in under 5 minutes. 5 billion in the first hour and more than 7 billion by 2 a.m. Mega bucks are flooding in for Alibaba's Singles Day, the biggest event on the global e-commerce calendar, kicking off in China at the strike of midnight on November 11th, with massive sales blowing Black Friday and Cyber Monday out of the water. The 24-hour discount blitz is a major benchmark of Chinese online shopping. As usual, Alibaba has spared no expense on publicity. Kobe Bryant and David Beckham lining up next to CEO Jack Ma in the southern city of Shenzhen. But disappointment for Katy Perry fans. The pop princess was meant to headline a kickoff concert for Singles Day, but she pulled out on Thursday saying she had a family emergency, posting an apology on Chinese social media. Early indications show that more than 80% of Singles Day shopping is being done on smartphones.
Influential singer and songwriter Leonard Cohen has passed away at the age of 82. Known as rock music's man of letters, his songs fused religious imagery with themes of redemption and sexual desire, earning him critical and popular acclaim. Paul Chapman reports.
Dance me to the end of love.
Leonard Cohen's death at the age of 82 was announced in a statement on his official Facebook page. During his career, he influenced many musicians and won plenty of honours, yet his sometimes moody folk rock style rarely made the pop charts. Many of his songs became hits for other stars, including Judy Collins, who helped him gain fame by recording some of his early compositions in the 60s. Canadian-born Cohen was already a celebrated poet and novelist when he moved to New York in 1966 to break into the music business. He was 31 at the time and was quickly being compared by critics to Bob Dylan for the lyrical force of his songwriting. He released the You Wanted Darker album just last month, but the New Yorker described him then as ailing. Cohen never married. He's survived by his son Adam and daughter Lorca.
Doctor Strange, the latest entry in the Marvel movie canon, is expected to hold the top spot at the box office this weekend, despite a flood of new releases. The superhero movie, which stars Benedict Cumberbatch and Tilda Swinton, has taken in almost $100 million in its first week in theaters. Here's the trailer for those of you who haven't seen it.
Stephen Strange. Might I offer you some advice? Forget everything that you think you know.
You're a man looking at the world through a keyhole. You've spent your life trying to widen it. Your work saved the lives of thousands. What if I told you that reality is one of many?
I don't believe in fairy tales about chakras or energy or the power of belief.
You wonder what I see in your future? Possibility.
Why are you doing this?
There are other ways to save lives. So much you don't know.
Teach me.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. A man in Akkad shoots his two sons dead in their sleep before turning the weapon on himself. The UN says ISIL has executed 60 people over treason in Iraq's Mosul. And protests in the United States against Donald Trump's election victory turn violent as demonstrators across the country take to the streets for a second day. Those are your top stories in English for today. I'm Linda Tamim, and I thank you all for watching.
Lebanese.